My stepmother told the whole family I was written out of my dad's will for being ungrateful. Nobody questioned it. But then my dad's oldest friend pulled me aside and told me something that changed everything. My stepmother looked me dead in the eye at my father's funeral and said, "Your daddy wanted you to have nothing. You should be grateful we even let you sit in the front row." I was 28 years old, standing over the casket of the only parent who ever loved me, and this woman was already carving up his estate like a Thanksgiving turkey. She thought I'd just walk away. She thought I was still that quiet 9-year-old boy who kept his head down and never complained. She was wrong. My name is Nate, and this is the story of how I got back every single dollar. I need to take you back. My mom died of ovarian cancer when I was 7. It was just me and my dad for 2 years. Glenn Prescott, maintenance supervisor at a UPS distribution hub in Louisville, Kentucky. Big hands, quiet voice, the kind of man who fixed everything in the house himself and never once complained about working overtime. He remarried when I was 9, Colleen Dwyer. She brought her son Trent, who was 8, into our home, and from that first week, the line was drawn. Trent got enrolled at Louisville Collegiate School, private institution, $18,000 a year. I stayed at Fern Creek Traditional High, a public school, wearing Trent's hand-me-down clothes that never quite fit right, and sleeping in a converted bedroom in the basement. At 16, Trent got a brand new Dodge Charger with a bow on it in the driveway. I rode the Tark bus every morning, rain or shine. Colleen had this way of framing it that made my dad go along with everything. Nate needed to learn self-reliance. Trent had special needs that required investment. My dad was conflict averse and so deeply in love with Colleen that he never pushed back. Not once. Not where she could hear him anyway. When it came time for college, Trent went to Bellarmine University, tuition paid in full by my dad at Colleen's insistence. I took out $47,000 in student loans to put myself through the paramedic sciences program at the University of Louisville. $47,000. I was 22 years old, signing papers that would follow me for the next decade, while Trent walked across campus without owing a cent. But here's the thing people don't understand. Despite all of it, I loved my dad. And he loved me. We just never had the language for it in front of Colleen. He'd slip me a $100 bill in a birthday card when she wasn't looking. He'd squeeze my shoulder at the door when I left on Sundays and whisper, "I know it's not fair, son. I'm going to make it right." I believed him. Part of me wonders if I was naive for that, but I believed him. I graduated, became a paramedic at Louisville Metro EMS, built a small, stable life for myself in a 1-bedroom apartment in Germantown. Nothing fancy. Clean sheets, a paid electric bill, a job where I got to help people on the worst days of their lives. I visited my dad every other Sunday, always when Colleen was at her church group. We'd sit on the back porch, drink coffee, and talk about nothing important. Those were the best hours of my week. What I didn't know was that my dad had quietly gone to his own attorney, a woman named Margaret Faulkner, and updated his will. He left me $187,500 from a life insurance payout and his 50% share of a duplex on Bardstown Road, valued at $220,000. He named Colleen as executor because he wanted to keep the peace. Even in his final wishes, he was still trying not to make waves with that woman. There were signs I should have paid attention to. Colleen had been asking my dad pointed questions about what she called estate simplification. Trent had just launched a luxury car detailing business called Bluegrass Elite Auto Spa, and he needed startup capital. Colleen was circling. I just didn't see it yet. Then, on a Thursday morning in October, my dad collapsed on the floor of the UPS distribution warehouse. Massive heart attack. He was 59 years old. The paramedics on scene did everything right. I know because I pulled the run report later. It wasn't enough. My dad died on a concrete floor, surrounded by conveyor belts and shipping pallets. And before his body was even cold, Colleen was already rewriting his final wishes. 3 weeks after the funeral, I called Colleen to ask about the probate timeline. She answered in this flat, rehearsed tone, like she'd been practicing in front of a mirror. She told me my father had revised his will 6 months before he died. The new will left everything to her and Trent, the insurance payout, the duplex, all liquid assets, every dollar. My share was a box of my dad's old fishing gear and a letter thanking me for understanding. I felt the ground shift under my feet. I asked to see the document. She said it was with her attorney and that I should just accept it and move on, the way Glenn wanted. She said his name like she owned it. Within days, I learned from a cousin that $143,000 had already been transferred from the estate account into Bluegrass Elite Auto Spa, Trent's detailing business. The duplex on Bardstown Road had been listed with a realtor. Colleen was liquidating everything, fast, deliberately, and without a single notification to me. She wasn't even pretending to follow probate procedure. She was grabbing what she could before anyone asked questions. I drove to the house on a Saturday afternoon. Colleen answered the door with Trent standing behind her like a wall. "I want to see the revised will, Colleen. The actual document." "You don't have a right to demand anything. Your father made his wishes clear." "My father told me to my face that I was taken care of. So either show me the paperwork or I'm calling a lawyer Monday morning." Trent stepped forward. "Bro, just let it go." Dad obviously felt guilty, but he knew I was the one building something. "You're a paramedic. You'll be fine." I looked at him. This man, standing in the house my father paid for, driving a car my father bought, running a business funded by money that was supposed to be mine. Building something with whose money, Trent? Colleen slammed the door. Through the wood, I heard her say, "Let him waste his money on a lawyer. No judge is going to side with him over a grieving widow." I sat in my truck in that driveway for 20 minutes. My hands were shaking, but not from fear, from clarity. I'd spent my whole life being the one who didn't complain, didn't make waves, didn't ask for what was mine. I watched Trent get the car, the school, the tuition, and I told myself it didn't matter because I was strong enough to build my own way. And I did. But this was different. This wasn't about a Dodge Charger or a college bill. This was my father's last act of love, being stolen and rewritten by the woman he trusted most. She was erasing him. She was erasing what he wanted. And she thought I'd just let her. I drove home, opened my laptop, and started searching for probate attorneys in Jefferson County. I found Dana Whitfield. She was a sharp litigator with a specialty in contested estates and fiduciary fraud. Her website had exactly one testimonial that mattered to me. It said, "She doesn't flinch." I emailed her that night with everything I knew. 2 days later, I got a call that changed everything. Earl Hobson, 67 years old, retired contractor. He'd been my dad's best friend since they were both in their 20s, pouring concrete in the summer heat. Earl had been at a St. Stephen Martyr church fundraiser that weekend, and he overheard Colleen laughing with her friends in the parish hall. Her exact words, "Nate was never really part of this family anyway. Why should he get a dime?" Glenn was sentimental, but I fixed that. She said it laughing, at a church fundraiser, while my father had been in the ground less than a month. Earl called me the minute he got to his truck. His voice was shaking, and Earl Hobson is not a man who shakes. "Son, your daddy talked to me about that will. He wanted you to have that duplex and every penny of that insurance money. She's lying, and I'll swear to it in court if that's what it takes." What Colleen didn't know was that my father's original attorney, Margaret Faulkner, still had a signed copy of the real will locked in her office safe. And Dana Whitfield was about to subpoena every bank record Colleen thought she'd buried. Dana Whitfield moved fast. Within 2 weeks, she had assembled a case that was methodical and devastating. First, she contacted Margaret Faulkner, my dad's original attorney. Margaret produced the authenticated will from her office safe. My father had signed it 14 months before his death. 2 of his coworkers at UPS witnessed it. It was notarized at a Louisville notary office on Shelbyville Road. The language was plain and specific. $187,500 from the life insurance payout goes to Nate Prescott. Glenn's 50% share of the duplex on Bardstown Road goes to Nate Prescott. There was no ambiguity. There was no room for interpretation. My dad knew exactly what he wanted. Then Dana went after the forgery. She hired Dr. Raymond Kelso, a forensic document examiner with 22 years of experience. He analyzed the revised will Colleen had submitted to probate, the one dated 6 months before my dad's death. His findings were brutal. The signature was a traced forgery. The ink dating was inconsistent with the claimed signing date, and the notary stamp on the document belonged to a notary whose commission had expired 8 months before the will was supposedly signed. Colleen hadn't even bothered to check if the stamp was still valid. She'd gotten sloppy because she never expected anyone to look. Subpoenaed bank records from Republic Bank showed $143,000 wired from the estate account directly into Bluegrass Elite Auto Spa, LLC, within 19 days of my dad's death, before probate was even opened. She moved the money before the system could catch up. Earl Hobson provided a sworn affidavit detailing my father's explicit intentions and Colleen's confession at the church fundraiser. The listing agent for the duplex confirmed Colleen had instructed her to sell as quickly as possible, under market if necessary. Every piece pointed in one direction. Colleen hired her own attorney, a local generalist named Victor Boggs. He filed a motion to dismiss my challenge, calling it a disgruntled stepchild's attempt to override a widow's rightful inheritance. That's the phrase he used, disgruntled stepchild, like I was contesting a parking ticket. Colleen doubled down publicly. She told extended family I was mentally unstable. She said I'd been estranged from Glenn for years, which was a lie. I could disprove with cell phone records showing calls every single week. She told people my dad had confided in her that I reminded him too much of his first wife, and it was painful. She used my dead mother as a weapon. She enlisted Trent to post on Facebook that I was harassing a grieving family over money. 2 of Colleen's church friends submitted declarations claiming my dad had expressed dissatisfaction with me at Bible study. Women who'd met me maybe 3 times in my life suddenly had expert opinions on my relationship with my father. Trent, meanwhile, was spending like the money was already his forever. He leased a commercial space in St. Matthews, purchased $38,000 in detailing equipment, hired 4 employees, all of it funded by $143,000 that belonged to me. He was betting Colleen would win and that the money would never need to come back. Dana Whitfield didn't flinch. She filed a motion for emergency injunction to freeze all estate assets and halt the duplex sale. She presented Dr. Kelso's forensic report, the bank transfer timeline, and Earl's affidavit to Judge Patricia Hendricks in Jefferson County Probate Court. The judge granted the injunction within 72 hours. The duplex was pulled off the market. The estate account was frozen. And Dana added one more request. She asked the court to remove Colleen as executor for breach of fiduciary duty. Victor Boggs tried to negotiate a settlement. He offered me $60,000 to end this quietly. $60,000 out of $187,500 that was already mine? Dana called me and read me the offer. I didn't hesitate. Not a chance. We want full restitution, legal fees, and a referral to the Commonwealth's attorney. Dana said, "Good, that's what I was going to recommend." Then my cousin Jess Prescott came forward. She was 34, a dental hygienist in Lexington, my dad's niece. She'd stayed neutral at first. I didn't blame her. But after Colleen's smear campaign hit the family group chats, Jess couldn't stay quiet anymore. She told Dana that my dad had shown her the original will at a family barbecue in Jeffersontown the previous summer. He'd pulled her aside near the grill and said, "I finally did right by Nate." Jess submitted a written statement corroborating everything. The hearing was set for a Tuesday in March. Colleen walked into that courtroom like she owned it. She walked out like someone who'd just watched her entire scheme unravel in real time. The hearing in Jefferson County Probate Court lasted 4 hours. Judge Patricia Hendricks heard everything. Dana Whitfield presented Dr. Kelso's forensic analysis first. He took the stand with 22 years of credentials behind him and explained it in terms no one in that courtroom could misunderstand. The forged will's signature showed pen lift hesitation marks, consistent with tracing, not natural handwriting. The notary stamp came from a commission that had lapsed. The ink's chemical aging didn't match a document supposedly signed 6 months before my dad's death. It was fabricated. And it wasn't even fabricated well. Colleen's attorney tried to argue the forensic evidence was subjective. Judge Hendricks listened politely. Then she turned to Colleen directly. "Mrs. Prescott, did you create or commission this document?" Colleen stammered. She looked at Victor Boggs. He looked at the table. And then Colleen said, Glenn told me what he wanted. I just made sure it was written down. The courtroom went completely silent. I watched Dana stand slowly, like someone who knew the fight was already over. Your Honor, the respondent has just admitted, on the record, to fabricating a testamentary document and presenting it to this court as authentic. Earl testified next. Steady, unshakable. He recounted my dad's words about the will. He recounted what Colleen said at the St. Stephen Martyr fundraiser, laughing about how I was never really part of the family. Jess Prescott's written statement was entered into evidence, and the bank records sealed every last crack. $143,000 moved to Trent's business account before probate was even filed. Transfers initiated by Colleen using her executor authority over an estate she had no legitimate claim to administer. Judge Hendricks ruled from the bench. The forged will was voided. The original will was reinstated in full. Colleen was removed as executor and ordered to make full restitution of $143,000 plus $34,000 in my legal fees. The court referred the matter to the Jefferson County Commonwealth's attorney for criminal investigation into forgery and fraud. Colleen sat frozen in her chair. Trent put his head in his hands. I stared straight ahead and didn't say a word. I didn't need to. The restitution order hit Trent's business like a wrecking ball. Bluegrass Elite Auto Spa had already burned through most of the $143,000 on the St. Matthews lease, the $38,000 in equipment, and 4 employees' payroll. Trent couldn't cover the clawback. Within 4 months, the business folded. He defaulted on the commercial lease. The equipment was repossessed. All 4 employees lost their jobs. Colleen was forced to sell the house she'd shared with my dad, the same house where I grew up sleeping in a converted basement bedroom, while Trent had the second floor to himself. She moved into a rental apartment in Okolona. The Commonwealth's attorney opened a formal investigation. Colleen was charged with forgery in the 2nd degree and theft by deception. That case was still pending as of this recording. Trent stopped posting on Facebook. Several family members who had believed Colleen's narrative quietly reached out to me to apologize. Most through text, none in person. About 6 months after the ruling, Trent called me. It was awkward, halting, long silences. He said he didn't know the will was forged. He said his mom told him my dad had changed everything voluntarily. I didn't fully believe him, but I listened. He didn't apologize directly. He said, I wish things had been different. I said, they could have been, Trent, at any point. We haven't spoken since, but if he ever genuinely owns what happened, the door isn't completely closed. With Colleen, there is nothing. No call, no message, no reconciliation. That door is shut, and it's staying shut. I kept the duplex on Bardstown Road, moved into one unit, and rented the other to a traveling nurse for $1,400 a month. I used part of the $187,500 insurance payout to eliminate my $47,000 in student loans, debt I'd carried since I was 22 years old. I put the rest into savings and a modest index fund. I still work as a paramedic at Louisville Metro EMS. I bought a used Ford Ranger. I started volunteering with Big Brothers, Big Sisters of Kentuckiana, mentoring a 12-year-old kid from the Shawnee neighborhood whose situation reminded me a lot of my own. I don't live lavishly. I live freely. My dad wasn't perfect. He let Colleen run that house, and he let me feel invisible for a long time. But in the end, he put my name on that will. He made sure I was taken care of, even if he couldn't say it out loud while he was alive. Colleen tried to erase that. She tried to erase me. But some things, no matter how hard you try to forge over them, the truth holds.